Hello and welcome to this week's midweek magic event, which happens to be Historic Pauper, so only commons are allowed, and it's pretty rare that we get to play Pauper on Arena, so I wanted to take this opportunity to check out the format. Haven't played any games yet, but I've already built this Bant Aura Hexproof deck, which is a deck I've tried in previous events with good success, and we've gotten a lot of upgrades in recent sets, with Gladecover Scout now a 1-mana creature with Hexproof, and then at 2 mana there's the Cryptomancer, which also has Flash, Backup 1 and Hexproof. And then we've got various enchantments to suit up our creatures with, such as Ethereal Armor, giving +1/+1 for each enchantment we control, as well as First Strike. And then Ancestral Mask is also a common, giving +2/+2 for each other enchantment on the battlefield, so it also counts the opponent's stuff. And then we've got more keywords, with Sentinel's Eyes giving +1/+1 and Vigilance. We've got Audacity giving 2 power and Trample. And then a Cartouche of Knowledge gives +1/+1 and Flying, also draws a card when it enters. And finally, Squire's Devotion giving +1/+1 and lifelink, also makes a lifelinking vampire token, could be pretty important against other aggro decks. And then to round things out, there were a few options. Could play Spirited Companion as an enchantment creature that draws a card and still powers up Ethereal Armor and Ancestral Mask. We could also play with the Hero of Aroas, which has been downshifted from rare to common on Arena through Pioneer Masters, so that could be decent and another creature we can start targeting. And then there's also Heliod's Pilgrim, which can find whatever aura we want and put it into our hand, but I settled on a Dog Umbra, which can maybe protect our creature if it somehow gets destroyed, although I can't think of many circumstances where that would happen, but it can also enchant opposing creatures, preventing them from attacking or blocking. Can be good against other aura strategies if our opponents don't have hexproof creatures that are enchanting. So that's the deck I'm trying out. The mana base, of course, is going to be a bit rough in Pauper since we don't have great mana fixing, but we still have access to some fetch lands here. Broker's Hideout can get whatever basic we need in our deck, as well as gain a life, and then Tranquil Landscape from Modern Horizons can immediately tap for colorless mana, but we can also sacrifice it to get one of our basics, and then can also be cycled if necessary. And then 6 Forest, 6 Plains, 4 Island. So that's the deck I'm trying out for now. It's possible we might make some adjustments along the way, but you'll experience it with me. But for now, let's jump into a game and see how the deck does. Alright, first game. This deck will mulligan a fair bit between inconsistent mana and needing a creature in its opener. We see double Cryptomancer, but no blue, so afraid I'm gonna have to mulligan. This time no creature. Once again. Alright, we've got a keeper at long last. So I can keep Gladecover Scout. And then I have to decide between Ethereal Armor or Audacity. I guess we'll keep Ethereal Armor, 2 lanes. So it's not the start we were hoping for, but it could still line up favorably. As our opponent's got a Soul Warden, so a life gain deck. Dog Umbra not really gonna be necessary on the Soul Warden. Could also keep the Scout on defense, to be honest, since we're probably not winning the race as is. Charmed Stray, alright, so opponent's got more lifelinkers. So yeah, the Scout can hang back until we can grow it some more. Opponent does have their own Ethereal Armor. Alright, so play land and pass. Hope they put more enchantments on their Charmed Stray, since we have the Dog Umbra, and Dog beats Cat. The upside of playing one color, of course, is much more consistent mana. So we are taking a few more risks by going into 3 colors. But then again, it's not like we need to have multiple creatures in our opening hand. 1 creature will suffice. Opponent does not attack, otherwise I could have set up an ambush with the Umbra by growing the Scout at instant speed. A landscape can get blue. Exemplar is fine. So that grows their Charmed Stray. So yeah, I could play the Umbra, but then I would basically trade for the Stray, since I would have a 3/3 Scout with Umbra Armor, and then we block this tray and it dies. I think I'll just take it for now. And then we can maybe be more strategic with the Dog Umbra. Could of course just enchant their cat. But we'll see what else they play. We're somehow the ones flooding, even though we mulliganed. Opponent's gonna Plains Cycle. And another Soul Warden. Yeah, maybe I just Dog Umbra the Charmed Stray at this point. I have a 3/3 Scout. Audacity can grow it. Although I don't think we're attacking yet. I would be hitting for 6, our opponent attacks back for 5, but they're gonna gain a lot of life. So we need to wait for Vigilance and or a lifelink. Fencer can put +1 counters on stuff. Alright, Ancestral Mask. Okay, that hits hard. Because our opponent also controls a couple enchantments, and now we're attacking for 17. Yeah, that's probably worth it. We have Trample. Opponent jumps with the enchantment creature, so we actually lose out on an enchantment now. So our opponent can attack back for at least 7, but probably more. And they might have some of their own pacifism effects in hand, which don't do much. So our mulligan seems to be working out. Inspiring Overseer is definitely a good common. So yeah, I may not be able to attack next turn unless we draw something relevant. Cryptomancer gives us a blocker for the Fencer, which might be good enough. Could also play it now to put a +1 counter on the Scout. Kinda like keeping it as a surprise. Opponent jumps. Alright, now we're not taking quite as much damage on the way back. Now by playing Cryptomancer, our opponent also gains some life, of course. Exemplar is fine. Yeah, just want to make sure we can jump the Fencer. And then we should be able to attack back for lethal. Can put the counter on the Scouts. Opponent's at 13. We take 4. Now the Exemplar will die with first strike damage, so I guess it doesn't matter because we still would deal 18 in first strike. It's not like we have double strike where regular damage would be diminished. With the Ancestral Mask not getting the additional +2/+2. And this we could cycle, but seems like the game's over here. One way or another. Opponent jumps. And there we have it. So very close one here against Mono White. But yeah, we did mulligan a fair bit. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. We do not have blue or white mana. So we're just playing a Scout and then hoping for the best. Yeah, I'll mulligan. This we can keep. And then I should only need 1 Cryptomancer. Fetch Plains. Alright, opponent is playing blue, so counterspells could certainly be a factor. Although at least Cryptomancer has Flash, so we can maybe catch them off guard. Opponent opts. Alright, I'm main phasing Cryptomancer now. I guess they could still have... Is Stern Scolding a common? I guess we don't have to worry about it now. But yeah, otherwise that could still counter a Cryptomancer. Now I just want to make sure this hits the table. And then they might counter some of my auras. We'll see. Opponent's just opting for now. There are quite a few cantrips at 1 mana. Opt, consider, sleight of hand. Possible they're playing creatures like Tolarian Terror to go with it. For now, maybe start with a Squire's Devotion. Prefer resolving Ancestral Mask, and the Mask is going to be more effective if we already have some enchantments in play. Opponent does have the Spell Pierce, so no 1 mana flash creature to worry about. If they are playing creatures like Tolarian Terror, we can still at least use our Dog Umbra, and yeah, there it is. Speak of the devil. So, can Dog Umbra pay the ward? I think that makes more sense than trying to jam Ancestral Mask when they could still have a Spell Pierce. Of course, they could still Spell Pierce the Dog Umbra. But we have another one. That works. If they have bounce spells, they could also bounce their own terror, so they can pick it back up and attack again. And then I'm not sure if Adimurk Crab is a common or an uncommon. For now, they've got another terror. Alright, I guess we'll try Ancestral Mask now. And then I could even play around Spell Pierce if we play the Landscape, although I would much rather cycle it, and our opponent didn't seem to have Spell Pierce last turn. So I think we still try this. And then can't quite attack yet. But that's alright. Which color do we want? With Cartouche we can maybe draw, so I guess additional blue mana makes more sense. Opponent's got a quick study, draw 2. And hit me for 5. And drew a land, so now I can pay for Spell Pierce. Yeah, let's go to attackers. If I play Umbra now, we get to grow the Cryptomancers, so it seems worth a try. Although they could also have a negate. Opponent negates, alright. So, could have maybe timed it differently, wait for them to tap out all the way, and then play the Umbra. But any enchantment we draw that resolves is still going to be good enough to stabilize us. And a Cartouche is one of them. Opponent negates again, alright, different art this time. Well, if they have infinite negates, I guess we're in trouble. And then we have more 1 mana auras in white and green. So we'll keep up Plains, and a Sentinel's Eyes would be good. Can also escape it, so if they negate, it's not a disaster. Hit you for 6. And yeah, now Tolarian Terror doesn't have any great blocks. Or attacks, for that matter. Still have to be somewhat careful that they don't shrink down Cryptomancer by bouncing their own terror. Would turn this into a 4-5, so then they could set up an ambush. So I'm probably not going to attack until we find another aura first. Opponent with a 3-4 flyer, that's fine. And Ancestral Mask, if they cannot negate it, is going to be pretty difficult to beat. Opponent's doing some hovering, that resolves. And yeah, they have to chump block now. The attendants thrown under the bus. Yeah, if they had a bounce spell, they probably would have bounced their own creature by now. So we're just missing trample or flying. Another attendance. Vigilance makes it very difficult for the opponent to race us. And we don't even have a lifelink, but now we have trample as well. So yeah, ended up being a little bit close. But eventually the Aura deck prevails. Nice. Alright, so 20 powered Cryptomancer to cross the finish line. So it seems like the deck is working. Alright, we're on the draw with a decent hand. Got all 3 colors, multiple creatures. So we're just hoping for more enchantments now. Opponent on the red aggro, turn 1 percussionists. Alright, could consider trading the scout, since we have creatures aplenty. But could also leave it back for later as maybe a way to chump. Yeah, next turn I can't quite Audacity plus Sentinel's Eyes. So, we'll see. Might use Cryptomancer to set up an ambush on the percussionists. As opposed to I can fetch for white mana right now. Audacity the scouts. Still can block. I kind of like the Cryptomancer line. If we're afraid of a pump spell, Cryptomancer could put counter on itself, and then we'll still have the Glade Cover Scout left over. Our opponent is diversifying. So now I guess we put Scout on Percussionist, and then Cryptomancer puts counter on itself end of turn. And hope they don't have more pump spells. Felonious Rage, yeah, that's +2/+0, so we would still take out the Percussionist. And another Bane Splitter, so that seems fine. Opponent will get a 2/2 in return. And then found an Ancestral Anger. Alright, so we're still missing white. Gotta go search it up now. And then I guess it's just Audacity here. But don't really want to attack yet. So yeah, we're in a bit of an awkward spot, not gonna lie. Gonna take a decent chunk of damage next turn, so if we don't find a way to stabilize, which is either a lifelink or a way to add more power and toughness, we could be in trouble. Opponent sends for 7. It's probably going to be more than 7. A Rapier. So are we dead? Take 10. Alright. So I can double Sentinel's Eyes. I think I pumped the same Cryptomancer twice, as opposed to making a 2/2 Scout. Although I guess our opponent's going to force us to trade off both creatures next turn anyway. So then we're going to be on empty. But at least we won't have just chumped with the Scout. And we also get to draw off Audacity. So we'll need to find another creature. And more ways to suit them up. Alright, I'm pretty happy that they just attacked with 1 creature here. So we get to keep the Cryptomancer around. And then keep suiting up the Cryptomancer, since we don't have a choice. Hit you for 7. And then I probably have to block on the way back. Maybe they're still hoping for a way to give their creature trample. Can't pay the ward if we draw our Umbra, but I can still put Umbra on my creatures so we can keep the Cryptomancer alive. But the opponent found another threat, so now they force us to trade. I do get to draw 2. But yeah, we need some pretty good draws. Well, Cryptomancer is one of them. So we're still in it. And an Ethereal Armor, wow. So are we actually doing it? Squire's Devotion plus Ethereal Armor has to be the play. Leaves behind an extra token. And we gain 4. And then next turn we can escape another Sentinel's Eyes. So our opponent needs to top deck right now, they did not. And yeah, without any trample we can just jump. Although, if they only deal 5 I could also consider taking it. But yeah, with Sentinel's Eyes there's no real need. And we even found the Dog Umbra, which I can now cast on the Dwarf. Perfect. Well, that was definitely a close game. So yeah, against Mono Reds, if they're off to a quick start and we maybe stumble a little bit, they can certainly close out the game before we manage to stabilize. On to the next one. On the draw, no creature. Once again. And now we've got a Keeper. So, gotta fetch probably green, get rid of Cryptomancer and the Plains. And then turn 2 we can scout and commence suiting it up. Opponent is playing blue-black, so we have to be afraid of counterspells and edicts. So we'll see what happens. Opponent maybe an affinity deck, because yeah, the artifact lands are common, so those are all quite good. For now, I guess I could Audacity instead of Sentinel's Eyes. In case they have removal, I at least get to draw. But yeah, I don't know if an affinity deck would necessarily have access to edict effects to make us sacrifice. For now, a Gleaming Barrier. That's fine. So Ancestral Mask is +2. But we're more likely to draw a non-white land, so I can play Mask plus a 1-drop next turn. So I think for now Ethereal Armor makes more sense. Because if I Mask now, next turn I can only play a single aura. And for now, Armor gives an equal amount of extra power. And there's a 1-mana Thoughtcast, one of the payoffs for playing the Affinity deck. And a Mirror Enforcer, a 4/4, with Affinity for artifacts, and opponent's got a lot of artifact lands. Blue and black are the only ones that got the common untapped artifact lands. Opponent passes, they could also have a counterspell up here. So maybe give them a Sentinel's Eyes, which we can still escape later. Because yeah, they might have a Metallic Rebuke. Alright, that works, so we can still hit for 7 first strike. Opponent's already jumping. That works. They get a treasure. And currently they don't have any good attacks either. Steelfin Whale, 3/4. Can untap, and another copy. But yeah, they can't really attack into the scouts. This attack sort of implies that they have a combat trick, because we do have first strike. So what's an affinity pump spell that would make sense. Maybe something to make their creature indestructible until end of turn. Seems unlikely, but if we're wrong about this, then our entire game plan falls apart. Yeah, I'll just respect the pump spell here, even though it seems like our opponent's just attacking out of desperation. Alright, and then now we can Ethereal Armor. I kind of want this to get countered so we can resolve Ancestral Mask. Alright, that resolved. So they might not have it. And that's an attack for 22. Opponent double blocks. And still takes lethal. Wrestler. So couldn't target our creature. Anything else? And another one, alright. Deal damage. And that's game. Sweet. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. No creature means mulligan. How low can we go? Alright, we've got a keeper. And then probably just keep the single creature here, 3 lands. Play this before our opponent could make us discard it. Because there are some common 1-mana discard spells, I believe, that can still take away creatures specifically. So now we can fetch blue. And then cycle the landscape. So we're not hitting incredibly hard right now. But it doesn't take much to change that. And our opponent is on a Kiln Fiend deck, so blue-red will have access to plenty of cantrips. So this is scary. Kiln Fiend can certainly overpower us. So finding first strike would be a big deal. Or just a removal spell for the Kiln Fiend, I guess. Burning Prophets, as we draw another land, so I guess we're just cycling. And then I could still draw the 1-mana Audacity. Otherwise I would just do this at instant speed. Alright, blue cartouche. Gives us some hope. Opponent opts. So they must have lots of cantrips if they're willing to fire that off. As opposed to saving it for enabling their creatures next turn. The 1/1 token might want to block Kiln Fiend unless they give it trample. And just Kiln Fiend attacking. So with only 3 lands I'm not at risk of dying, so I can still take it. Because yeah, what happens if I chump, our opponent just lets damage happen and maybe plays another creature second main. Found our Dog Umbra, so that's good. For now, play Cartouche. Opponent could also have Spell Pierce in hand, I suppose. But we can still pay for it. And Audacity is nice. So now we're hitting for 5 in the air. And gaining 5. Our opponent unsummons the token. I will Dog Umbra now, just so they can't have cards like Spell Pierce to interact. So it's less likely that we get a wombo comboed next turn. Which is always a concern with Kiln Fiends, especially if they can give a double strike. So we are hoping for Ancestral Mask or Ethereal Armor. Those are probably the best ones. And now a Spellgorger Weird. Take 6, and there's Ancestral Mask off the top. And that's exactly enough. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Hideout gets blue, then we're just missing white. Yeah, it's not an exciting hand, but it's functional. Drawing forest is not ideal. But yeah, we have more plains in the deck, so definitely makes sense to get an island. And ooh, Heir Apparent. I like it. That could actually end up being somewhat problematic for us. If our opponent goes wide and we don't have a form of evasion. Trample helps, but flying or first strike could be more important actually. Another Cryptomancer. So I guess for now I can already make a Cryptomancer that's large enough to block a Heir Apparent, so our opponent will need to start going wide. And yeah, their deck is probably just all Heir Apparents, so that's what they're gonna do. Yeah, so opponent's gonna attack. We'll grow Cryptomancer. Can't wait to chump until later. And now we're just missing white mana to potentially get things going. Can make a 1/2 Cryptomancer that can block the 1/1 tokens now. But not before our opponent makes a bunch more, so it's not looking great. White mana for Squire's Devotion could still get there. Take 5 plus 4 is 9. Alright. So you're saying there's a chance. Just gonna pass and then hope for the best. Although, opponent's got a lot of tokens here, so not sure we actually survive. So let's do some quick math. So we're taking 13, gaining 5, 6, so I'm dead exactly if I block like this. So I have to chump with the Cryptomancer instead, and then we should go to 1. Another Cryptomancer. So now what's the best I can do? Sentinel's Eyes. Attack. Hope they block with everyone, and Cryptomancer bails us out, but opponent's just gonna take it. Alright, so we got cheesed by the Heir Apparents. If we actually drew Ancestral Mask or Ethereal Armor in the mix, we might have been able to go over the top. But as it stands, I think we're pretty dead. GG's. So yeah, maybe the scariest deck we faced so far is literally just all Heir Apparents and plains, so it's very easy to build. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, and no creature means mulligan. Once again. And we can keep. So get rid of 2 cards. It's probably just Devotion and a land. And then we'll start out by getting an island and hope to draw plains. Opponent is playing black, so edict effects are on the table. We'll at least have access to Audacity. I'll wait on the Cryptomancer, can maybe set up an ambush. Although if our opponent plays an island and has a counterspell up, I'll regret it. But this seems more like a sacrifice deck. Hopefully they're just sacrificing their own creatures instead of making me sacrifice. Alright, they're playing white as well. Opponent eventually decides to attack. 1-2 blocks 1-1. Opponent does get a treasure token. So if we draw planes, we can double spell. If not, probably just Audacity. We get to untap and draw the planes. Okay, on the off chance that our opponent has an Edict, we could lead with Sentinel's Eyes, which is at least still useful out of the graveyard. Ethereal Armor gets in a little bit of extra damage, but we'll try it this way. So let's see, does our opponent have an answer? It's going to be an Echo of Dusk. Gets +1/+1 and lifelink with Descent 4. Alright, that's fine by me. And then Hideout could fetch for an extra island, so if we draw Cartouche, we can still cast whatever else we top deck afterwards. Since from now on we're just casting one spell per turn. I just noticed our opponent's library size. A little bit more than I would recommend. I don't think mill decks are popular in the format. I don't think they downshifted Battle of Wits to a common, as far as I know. And I don't even think it's on Arena. It's gonna be a Savage Gorger. That's fine. Can cycle... I guess Landscape was an argument for maybe fetching an extra white or green source. So we could still cycle and cast a 1-mana aura afterwards. So now I'll go for planes. Alright, so it's their last chance. They might have a 3-mana Edict effect, although I guess they would have still been able to cast it last turn with a treasure. Opponent passes. Let's just go for maximum damage at this point. On the off chance that they can pump the Echo at instant speed. And hit you for 12. Opponent jumps, still trample for 10. Return to action. If they had a trig giving Death Touch, that could be maybe a way to trade, but we still have first strike, so they would need Death Touch plus Indestructible, and that might set up a trade. But yeah, that'll do it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We've got a solid hand this time. Can get blue. And then later green. For now, play Cryptomancer end of turn. Could also main phase it if we're afraid of a counterspell. Might be fine. That's also why having cheap hexproof creatures is important, so we can sneak them underneath any potential counterspells. Opponent with an entryway, making a 1-1. So, looks like an enchantment deck. Okay, so for now, maybe Cartouche, draw a card, and then fetch green. Since I can't quite double spell this turn otherwise. I guess never mind. With the Landscape, I could make Colorless, play Cartouche, and play Sentinel's Eyes, which maybe would have worked out better, actually. Yeah, the Landscape works a little bit differently from the Hideouts. but I think we'll be fine. So what can mono-white enchantments do? Suit up their own creature. But yeah, that's where the Dog Umbra is useful. Because in a way, we're giving up some power and toughness by playing creatures with hexproof as opposed to larger creatures. But the upside is that it only takes one removal spell to undo all of the opponent's work, whereas your opponent can do the same. For now, I think I'm still happy with Sentinel's Eyes. And then can go Cartouche plus Audacity. Should have probably started with Cartouche in case our draw step changed our play. But doesn't look like it. Alright, so get you for 6. Got a pretty reliable clock here. Have to be careful about blocking if our opponent has any instant speed pump spells. And then a Cryptomancer can at least still put a +1 counter on the one we're attacking with. Seraph lets them surveil when they gain life. That's fine. And our opponent's going to pass it back. So, play another Sentinel's Eyes. Attack. And then before damage, probably just play Cryptomancer now. Okay. Let's see what our opponent can come up with. There's not too many board wipes at common that we have to be afraid of. Knightly Valor, so yeah, they're also trying to suit up their creatures. Technically not that on board, since they can block, only take 3. But yeah, opponent's getting a little desperate here. Alright, and then Ethereal Armor is a pretty nice way to close it out. Hit you for 14, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. We are missing blue mana. So this hand is a little sketch. We're not doing much. I guess we can still cast a Dog Umbra as removal on turn 2. And then blue mana, Gladecover Scouts are all good draws. Yeah, maybe this one's still keepable, but let's take a mulligan anyway. Now we've got only white mana and 2 creatures we cannot cast. But I think I actually try this. And then, no matter which color we draw, whether it's blue or green, we'll be able to cast one of our creatures. Didn't really want to keep the second planes, even though it's useful for Mask, or if we just need to cast an Umbra on turn 2. But I also wanted to keep a higher density of enchantments. Alright, opponent's got a Flame Breather. We found our blue mana. So Cryptomancer's online. And Kiln Fiend's scary. But we do have a Dog Umbra. So, could try and block. Opponent would need a pump spell to punish us, which doesn't seem like they have it. And every point of damage matters against the red deck. That can get green, so we're off to the races. For now, I think I still value shutting down the Kiln Fiend more. Okay, maybe still block the Flame Breather, but I'll be extra careful. Warlord's Fury for first strike. We like seeing our opponents casting all their cantrips here when we're gonna shut down the Kiln Fiend at instant speed, which is maybe not something they're expecting. Opponent goes to attackers, so we have to act now. They still have a mana up, so I don't think I feel comfortable blocking Flame Breather. And our opponent's not going to bother. Alright, now Ancestral Mask is an option, or we can double spell with Cartouche, which I think I prefer. Since Mask would only be +2/+2. And then play Scouts. I think it still makes sense to keep going all in on one creature. Although that being said, I could keep Scouts on defense on the ground while we fly over with a Cryptomancer. When we have double Ancestral Mask, maybe that makes sense. And then we want a First Striker playing defense, whereas the Flyer doesn't really need it. In case our opponent played another Kiln Fiend with haste. You never know. Alright, opponent is on the burn plan now. But we can block the Crasher. And then next turn another Ancestral Mask could be good enough. Shock goes face. I might have waited until their turn to get an extra untap with Alchemist and pump Crasher, but maybe it doesn't matter. A Rent Resolve, I guess a good reason to just cast your spells since you're going to need the mana. So we could still get burnt out. Land Shock. So yeah, they're getting pretty close. Alchemist untaps. So we can block and then still take 2. So we have to make it count here. A Landscape still allows me to cast another spell. So we can mask up the Cryptomancer, and I guess that's already enough. But we could also Dog Umbra. One additional creature. And hit you for 29 damage. Alright, so definitely another close game here against Mono Red Burn. So we got a very nice sample size of the Historic Pauper metagame, and so far we only lost to the Heir Apparent deck of all decks, but I think that matchup is potentially winnable with a good start, so I'm not too concerned about it. So yeah, overall, the Bant Hexproof deck seems like a pretty well-positioned deck in the current meta. Maybe if Historic Pauper were to stick around for longer, people would adapt by playing more control decks with edicts and counter spells, which can be quite good at stopping the Hexproof strategy, but otherwise there's no real sweepers you need to worry about, and you get to shut down most removal spells. So overall, the Hexproof strategy is a powerful one as long as you can get your colors online, so that's maybe another concern, although we could always work out the mana base to be a little bit more consistent, even if we maybe give up some speed. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.